Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 15, Speaking to Inform. Previously, we've been discussing a lot of the fundamentals of public speaking, how to choose a topic, how to develop an audience analysis, how to organize your ideas and then support your ideas. Now we're going to be moving into a little segmentation of speaking to inform. What are some of the ways to adapt to this specific type of speech? So let's dive right in with why. Why are informative speeches so important? Well, on a fundamental level, communicating information to transfer knowledge is a fundamental part of human interaction. So, by better understanding how to inform others through an informative speech, we can also improve our ability to communicate information and transfer knowledge in the general. Also, knowing how to teach people is an important leadership skill that when you are influencing someone to do something, you have to show them how to do it or to communicate that information uh, clearly. Also, informative speaking gives valuable knowledge that can enrich people's lives. What are some of the things you've learned in elementary school, middle school, high school, all of which was informative speaking? Also, something to understand is that what happens when we don't learn that information? Then we lose sight of that valuable information that could potentially have enriched our lives. And a great way to learn something comes from trying to communicate it. It allows us to put it into a way that the audience is better able to understand it, and therefore we are better able to understand it. So, informative speaking, what is it? It is a speech designed to convey knowledge and understanding. When developing and evaluating informative speeches, we have to ask ourselves these three simple questions. Is the information communicated accurately? Meaning, is the information we're presenting accurate? Also, is it communicated clearly? That if it is not, then the audience, no matter how good this information is, that the audience just loses sight of it. And then is the information made meaningful and interesting to the audience? This is another big drawback because if the information doesn't seem to be meaningful and if the audience is not interested, then what's the point of the information? So, let's dive right in now with what the big overarching information of the informative speech is to understand. Is it new information? Is it relevant information? And is it useful information? New information, did they already hear it? If so, then maybe that's not good information to discuss. Instead, provide them new information. Also, is it relevant to them? Is it something that somehow indirectly affects them? And then is it useful? Meaning that can they take this information and then use it immediately? So new, relevant, and useful should be the primary focus of the information that we put in our speeches. So what's the goal? The goal of an informative speech is to provide new information to agenda set and then also create a positive or negative feeling. Providing new information, that makes sense. That's pretty obvious because in informative speech, you are updating and revising the audience's knowledge. But agenda setting is one that we may not think of, and this is where we tie in to the influential nature of informing. Because agenda setting is creating an awareness for a subject. It puts it on the agenda. So when someone brings up a how social media is affecting our relationships in a negative way, then that informing is putting that topic on our agenda. It is making it something that we want to deal with right now because it is a challenge. So it is putting it on the agenda. Also, we can create positive or negative feelings with the informative speech as well. Take um, an informative speech on a certain atrocity that is happening. Obviously, you'll be creating negative feelings associated with that situation, and that can further act as an influence on the audience. Informing is not persuading, but informing can be influential all the same. So there are four big types of informative speeches. Speeches about objects, speeches about processes, about events, and about concepts. Let's dive right in with speeches about objects. Objects are anything that is visible, tangible, or in stable form. This could include places, structures, animals, or people. It could be about pizza. It can be about cats. It could be about Teddy Roosevelt. It could be about Mexico. It can be about just about anything that is visible or tangible. But we have to keep in mind the scope. For example, if I was to do a speech about Teddy Roosevelt, that is an entire lifetime. So I may have to narrow the scope to maybe just his presidency or maybe 1 year of his presidency. So, speeches about objects, the scope can be a challenge. We also have speeches about processes. Speeches about processes is about a systematic series of actions that leads to a specific result or a product. So it can be how something is made, how something is done, or how something works. A lot of times with these sorts of speeches, visual aids are highly effective. Give you an example of how to bake a cake. That requires a lot of visual aids. Imagine trying to teach someone something without visual aids. Try to describe how to bake a cake without a visual aid. That's going to be incredibly, incredibly challenging. Other types of visual aids could be speeches about processes could be how laws are made, how cans are made, or even the in-flight safety demonstration of how do you work a seatbelt. Then we also have speeches about processes, and this is speeches about events. Events are anything that has happened or that happens or is regarded as happening. So, present tense or past tense. The scope of the speech should be adequate for the speech. So, this is, in essence, the Revolutionary War. That's a bit too big of a scope. Instead, maybe the precursors to the Revolutionary War, that might be more effective. Also, there can also one of the big benefits of this type of informative speech is that it can put events into a different perspective. A good example of this is Woodstock, that a lot of times we see this as this idyllic music festival, but it was actually very filthy. Had a lot of destruction, and a few people even died. So, puts it in different perspective. And then lastly, we have speeches about concepts. A concept is a belief, theory, idea, notion, principle, or the like. So, this can be about science, about math, about English, about communication. It can also be about religious situations. So, with all of this, there's a lot of technical language associated. Also, we have to define terms clearly and use examples and comparisons to illustrate the concept. For example, if I was to talk about what it means to trust someone, the concept of trust is a little bit challenging to understand maybe. So maybe I might have to define it with an actual definition, or I might use a comparison of what it is like to trust with money. Maybe I borrow $20, and then how that can illustrate trust. So, I've just talked about informative speeches in general. Now we're going to be talking about the 3 golden rules of informative speeches. Be thorough, don't be boring, and get organized. Let's dive right in. With this golden rule of be thorough, we have to have a careful and comprehensive discussion of the topic, leaving no questions of it unanswered or unclear explanations, avoiding abstractions, and not overestimating what the audience already knows. When we leave information out that we thought that the audience thought would be there, it is incredibly distracting and diminishes the speaker's credibility as well as diminishes the overall understanding of the topic. Also, we should avoid abstractions. And not overestimate what the audience already knows. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That we should better understand our audience. That will help us know what information we should be thorough on and which information we should perhaps gloss over. Second, we should not be boring. This involves honestly choosing the right topic, because if it is too technical, the audience may not care. If it is too simple, the audience may not care. Again, keeping in mind the new criteria regarding informative speeches, new, relevant, and useful. But it also means finding out what they know and then building on that information with need to know and need to know information. Need to know information is the information that is significant enough to spend time talking about it. In other words, if I, for example, talking about Teddy Roosevelt, if I don't know that Teddy Roosevelt wasn't president, then I wouldn't know who Teddy Roosevelt is. That's need to know information. Maybe another need to know information is that he perhaps created the National Park Service. Now we have need to know information, and need to know information adds interest to the speech. This can be about how Teddy Roosevelt was the namesake for the teddy bear. So we have 2 different types of information. We need both to be effective in our informative speeches. And this is where a lot of informative speeches sometimes break down, because it's too much focused on the need to know information and less focused on that need to know information to maintain the audience's attention. This may also involve being creative and personalizing your ideas. That can be some of the need to know information. If you're talking about a certain topic and then it turns out you have some experience with that topic, that can be some information that is neat to know. And then lastly, get organized. You should use some strategic organizational pattern to better achieve your speech goals beyond just simply clumping up your information into 3 main points. This may involve for a speech of description, so describing a certain object or maybe even an event, then you may involve spatial structure. So for example, if I was talking about the Battle of Gettysburg, I may talk about where each of the big parts were. Or if I was describing a college campus, I may use spatial structure to show where everything is. Next, we have a speech of demonstration, so demonstrating how to do something, or a speech about a process. This would involve chronological organization, because if I'm showing how to bake a cake, I would start at the beginning, go to the middle, then lastly finish at the end. Then we have speeches of explanation. Speeches of explanation are describing how something works. This can involve chronological or it could involve topical, just depending on what needs explaining. And lastly, speeches of revelation or concepts. This involves topical organization or categorical organization. If I was to talk, for example, about informative speeches, this concept, I would break it down into different main points. Uh, for example, 3 golden rules. And with that, that concludes Informative Speeches. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.